Welcome to Advanced Concept Presentation number 6, I believe. My name is Haley, and today we are going to be creating a rocket out of a noodle and a mason jar and some peroxide and yeast. So first, I like to do a little bit of background on the reaction itself, just because it helps me out a little bit, and I think it's good to show before we get started. And so I will just show you our supplies, and then I'll get into the background, and then we'll do our experiment. So first, we've just got some noodles. These ones I couldn't find ziti, so we went ahead and used this rigatoni. It's got a hole a little bit bigger than what I would have liked, but it's okay. Got some hydrogen peroxide. I've got a lighter for our heat source, and then I've got some dry yeast. And I went ahead and already put my hole in my noodle in my jar just to make sure it would fit. And then that obviously comes off. Hopefully there will be not too much gas will be let out through that little extra space, because I tried my best not to make it too big. But anyway, we'll kind of move into the background now, so we'll be back. Hello. So like we talked about, I just wanted to give a visual as to what's going to happen in this reaction before we get started. So first off, we'll just start with talking about what's going on in our peroxide. So this week we went over the bonding, and so I just wanted to talk about, first off, we've just got what a covalent bond is, and I just use little note cards. And covalent bonds are elements of similar properties which share the electrons to give them that noble gas electron configuration to make them a little bit more stable. And so hydrogen peroxide is a great example of a covalent bond. And so we've got H2O2, and here's its Lewis dot structure, just for a little bit of reference and a little bit of background information. So that gave our hydrogens 2 electrons, and it gave our oxygens 8 of our valence electrons. So now that we kind of have that, we know that when we mix our peroxide with our yeast, that yeast has an enzyme in it that's going to break down that bond. And so we just have here our hydrogen peroxide, and I definitely misspelled that. Catalase is what it's supposed to say, and that's our yeast enzyme. And so here is that kind of decomposition reaction where we've got our H2O2 and then our catalase is going to create this reaction where we've got release of O2 gas and water. And so in order for us to have the combustion reaction that we get when we burn the noodles, we've got the fuel in our noodle, we've got our oxygen gas, and then we've got our heat source, which is our lighter. So there's just a little bit of background, and then let's see what happens. Okay, so now that we have a little bit of background on the reaction taking place, I feel like that just helps me kind of see what's going on. It helps me get a little bit of interaction with the chapter with these presentations, and so we will get started. So got our little thing. I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. They didn't really talk about how much to put, how much peroxide. I'm gonna do like that, get a little better view. Didn't talk about how much peroxide to use, so, and I have a pretty small jar, so we'll just do like, I don't know, we'll do like that much. Might be a little much, but that's okay. We're gonna get some yeast. We're gonna do a teaspoon, just because that's what we did in our experiment, and then that's also what we need for this small jar. So. Alright, so put that in our teaspoon there. Oh gosh, creating a mess. Alright. This over here. The peroxide's already reacting with some of the yeast on the counter that I spilled. I didn't talk about what should happen. I always like to do a hypothesis. Obviously from our instruction video, we should have some release of gas in that reaction with the yeast. And then our noodle is going to act as our fuel. And so when we light that on fire, it should continue to burn and make a rocket type situation. So here we go. All right. We'll just throw the yeast on there and we'll cover that up, creating a bit of a seal. And it has that little reaction kind of like in the video, but we're gonna kind of hold this down and give it a little shake to really start that going. And then we're gonna light our noodle. Oh my goodness. Ah. Well, I'm glad we always talk about what might go wrong. So today we put a little, maybe too much peroxide and maybe too much yeast because we already came out. We also had a pretty big hole here in this tiny little jar. So that's what went wrong in our reaction so far. So we'll come back and I'll see if I can show you what an actual reaction or a successful experiment yields. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So hopefully we learned our lesson, and this time we're gonna try to decrease the amount of product we put in there for this little tiny jar, so we don't have a volcano instead of a rocket. So cleaned out our jar, got a new noodle. All right, ready to go. So I'm gonna put this down like this. Let's see how much we want to do this time. Oh my god, I'm literally so messy. Okay. OMG. We'll just do like that much. And I'm definitely gonna have to clean off the counter. So, very small amount this time. Let me dry this off. I don't have any extra product laying around waiting for a reaction. And so here we go again. Let's try it this time. So I might do a little less so we won't fill up the teaspoon completely. Obviously these are really informal. Oh my god. Little experiments. Otherwise we would be very specific on how much. Okay, got our lighter. We're just gonna throw that on there. Okay, we can see that reaction starting to happen. I'm gonna give it a small shake and we're gonna light this up. I think some of the reacting. I don't know if my noodle is too big and some of that air is escaping. Whew, that was kind of scary. Here we go. Oh. It's on fire a little bit, but it's not necessarily burning. And we're out. try to burn that. I don't think it's gonna work. Okay, so this week's experiment was a little bit failed, and that's okay. I do think it had to do with maybe the amount of stuff I put in there, and then maybe the size of my noodle, and my hole in my jar wasn't necessarily perfect, so that could have been it too. I did notice there's some heat inside the jar just from the reaction itself. Sometimes they don't work, sometimes they do. This week it did not work, but we got to see the reaction of the yeast and the peroxide, and we got to see kind of why those were doing that. So there we go. See you next time.